In 1977, an aspiring ballet dancer from Michigan would move to New York City to follow her dreams. She would instead end up trying her hand at music. Her name is Madonna. To call Madonna a trailblazer is almost not giving her enough credit. Yeah, there were solo female pop stars before her, but nobody stole the landscape of the American zeitgeist like she did. In an era of pretty boys and new wave, she was the exception, and proved herself to be omnipresent for decades. In fact, she had a top 10 hit in 4 decades. So what if the last one came in 2012 and was literally number 10? That's still having a hit 28 years apart. That's work. She has 38 top 10 hits. And so does Aubrey Graham. They're pretty comparable. On one hand, you've got a multi-talented definitive pop star. On the other, you have a guy who can't pick a performance lane, so he's below average at both rapping and singing. These two have the same number of Billboard Hot 100 top 10s. One of these guys is not as good as the other. If you haven't figured out by the fact I put my name in the title, or you're new here, hello! My name is Ducky, and I've covered the last 2 Drake albums in excruciating analysis and detail, but mostly just the records those albums generated on the Billboard Hot 100. More Life was a sloppy, careless wreck that wasted everyone's time. Scorpion was a little better, but still had many of the same lame trademarks of its wishy-washy creator. What are my thoughts on Dark Lane demo tapes? You silly goober, we got records to talk about first.
I put some ice on her hand, I let her take in advance.
What took Madonna 28 years took Drake 11. Not to say that a large percentage of them are objectively pure shit, but yeah, songs like One Dance don't really help his case. Oh yeah, sorry, some people like that hackney, unfinished pile of sounds. Don't worry, he tied it with a song that couldn't stay in the top 40 for more than 1 week. That's a great sign. $50 Drake passes Madonna by having some half-assed guest feature on some mediocre rapper's hit. My money is on Tyga. How about some records that are his alone?
Black leather glove, no sequins.
Eat your heart out, Taylor. No way she'll catch that. Especially when there's no reason for Drake to cut the subpar single releasing out. Next Unbreakable, please.
I know.
Easy peasy. The man can't stop featuring. Hell, since we last discussed Drake, he propped up some really talented newcomer. I guess that's one way to look better, beyond songs with shitty noobs. I'm sure it's also easier now in an industry of collaboration. You don't see Elvis Presley or Elton John jumping in on other people's songs. They created when stars were the only thing keeping a single going. Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney were pretty much a marketing gimmick back then. Now it's the new normal. You want Nicki Minaj? She'll show up, no matter how worthless you are. Drake is just the perfect amalgamation of that. He gives your song the clout while having too little of a presence to overstep the person he's promoting. You grow, he gets more hits. Eventually these meaningless records will turn his ego into a real-world version of Big Head mode. 111 top 40 singles? Give him something hard to reach, like 500. Elvis is arguably the closest with his puny 81, numbers that aren't even accurate because the legend was making music for 2 years before Billboard charting was a thing. And as much as I'd love to celebrate the king, you know Drake is nowhere close to done, despite the fact his skill says he should have quit with views. Please, give me more records I can delegitimize. Did you know that the Glee cast is credited with 207 entries? That's breaking my brain. Anyways, no shit. Drake has charted the entirety of 4 consecutive albums. That's 81 songs right there. Elvis has barely gotten more than 100. Look, Ma, how many boring, lusterless songs I can make. Those bitches will buy anything I make.
These bitches love me.
Someday Sextina Aquafina will catch Drake, but for now we can see that he acquired a cool mask from 2014's classic, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Hey, at least I can't make fun of his face for that. The only thing I have to grasp onto is, for fuck's sake, hire an art director for your album covers, you boring piece of shit. Honestly, these records don't establish how truly unremarkable he is as a musician. So instead of wading through all this fake praise, why don't we talk about the records he'll never break? I think those represent him much better. To imply Drake could even muster 5 number ones from an album is a joke in itself. Scorpion's 3 chart toppers were enough of a fluke, mainly because 2 of them came way before the album dropped, and the other only made it on the back of a social media trend. Not at all on the merit of the song. The current records were Michael Jackson's album after Thriller, height of his fame, and Teenage Wasteland by Katy Perry, which was, say it with me, the height of her fame. If Drake had an apex, which to me looks more like a flatline, it was definitely Scorpion. The guy isn't coming out with another album that long and with that many actual decent hits again, especially with this cycle's lead single.
Right foot up, left foot slide.
We'll get to that later. Assuming Drake could even manage an album with 5 singles is ridiculous. This last album even had Future on 2 songs, and that equated to a couple of songs that couldn't break the top 15. Dream is dead, buddy, and we're only getting started.
When the sunshine will shine together.
To be fair, he might catch Rihanna eventually. He just needs to stay in the top 10 for more than 2 years. How hard could that be? Toosie isn't already trying to escape the top 10 as we speak. With songs so meh, it's no wonder he can't stop from making his songs hits. Check out the next batch of singles that better start a TikTok trend, because why would anybody listen to this as music? Music isn't about art, it's about clout. What else can't he do? Yet.
I'm so glad.
No matter how much Drake shoves this crap in our face, we, as a people, will always be fatigued from having one guy try to dominate music. The people with this record are the 1964 Beatles with 6 and the 1965 Beatles with 5. Does Drake's little Scorpion trio keep him warm at night? One genuinely great song, a good song, and a joke? Here's as good a time as any to remind you that Drake has a full studio album coming out the summer of 2020. Yeah, that's now. The thing that we're talking about right now is a 14-song mixtape. Shut up. Hell, maybe I'm wrong, but who's gonna want 30-plus Drake songs in a year? This quote-unquote actual album can't garner the same chart smashing. People gave that to a mixtape. I'd also figure that a mixtape would actually be short enough to fit on an actual cassette, but not for him. He's got 1,000 song ideas rattling in that head of his. At the most, he's walking away from 2020 with 4 number ones. At most, yes, the horror. Or maybe it'll just be the one, seeing as he already couldn't butt somebody 20 years out of time from the Billboard 200 lead. You do good work, Kenneth. Speaking of the 200... The Beatles and Whitney have 5 weeks on Drake's best. That one time Drake's best album came with his worst cycle single.
I need a one dance.
Only 2016, our truest of nightmares. What could be more terrible than the year where music was unlistenable? If Drake wants to compete here, he better have a nice for what tier single ready to launch with an album that's at least a 5 out of 10. Yes, I understand I'm asking way too much of the guy. Like he'll ever make a song that good again. I got some crazy conspiratorial visions. It's really too bad that he can't keep a handle on the quality of his singles. Like, even in a good cycle. What is this?
I'm upset.
I wonder why this didn't reach number 1. Drake doesn't create in quality, he creates in quantity. That's why we get 2 albums in the same third of a year. Lucky us. Do you like this list? I like it, because Drake is nowhere close to being on it. I could imagine many more years of it being unpopulated by him. Not so easy to have a number 1 hit, is it? What, are you gonna cry? You gonna use Big Bear Buns to dry your tears? Poor little guy. These are the numbers that reveal Drake in a nutshell. Instead of taking his time and giving us the room to miss him, he has to be in our minds always, because that equates to no dollars being away for 1 year. Look at the record for longest consecutive weeks of being on the Hot 100. He's the only one who couldn't see that break as a good thing. Breaks are good. Do you know how I know? Look at somebody I actually like who didn't take a break.
I be riding through the town.
2 years after what was an actual album for Macklemore, he released Gemini, and he sounded worn out, reserved, sloppy, something I absolutely didn't get a whiff of in his height. He saw the world collapsing around him when Unruly didn't do as well as The Heist, so he rushed out an album without his musical rock, and it went nowhere. And that's a good performer. What happens when it's somebody much worse?
Basically, I'm saying either way, we bout to slide.
Drake's Appetizer album of 14 songs charted all 14 inside spot 52 with 1 new top 10, 2 top 20s, and 7 top 40s. What did this do to the chart? Well, May 9th had already brought its fair share of awkward shifts, so the impact was actually pretty lackluster for an album dump. The highlights are basically songs that managed to move up during this time. Say So and Savage prevented Toosie from being able to grow during a week it should have, which is bittersweet. So far, spoilers. Dua's Best Song had a slight rise. Nice. New song by newcomers that I don't like, Shot Up, Congrats Kids. I guess people like this thinly veiled wolf in sheep's clothing. And that does it for top 40 growth. It knocked a couple of decomposing turds out and stunted the growth of, why the fuck are we giving this guy another hit? For fuck's sake, who likes this guy? God damn it, America, what is wrong with you? Its impact has been weird, but its fall, a little bit more foreseen.
What numbers do I still have?
So I thought More Life had an epic fall. 86% of its songs stayed on in 2017 with 3 dropouts and an average move of 23 spots downwards. Demo's Demolition was an average fall of 46 spots per song. 50% stayed on the chart. If you want to see buyer's remorse, you're looking at it. Even More Life had songs in such low numbers of the chart, they had to fall out. When your song's worst week 1 placement is 52, songs shouldn't be sprinting away. That and one of your top 10 debuts shouldn't drop beneath another song that you released the same week. Man, that song must be terrible. Now looking so hot, Drake. People might be sick of you. Yeah, I don't think anybody cares about this thing. I think we've stalled long enough. Let's talk about the stats pattern. Impressions going in? I didn't know Toosie Slide was the soft opening for a mixtape. Just figured he found a way to make some shit-ass song in his house. You know, this might be the first time I've actually said my opinion of that song. It's shit! Again, I'll talk about it individually later, but it really didn't inspire confidence in an album. I know, you ask, Ducky, how do you have any optimism towards a Drake product? And I say, shut up, it's rating time, baby! Out of a possible 70 points on 14 songs? If you've forgotten what rating something on a 0 to 5 scale should look like...
Get a microphone, you scrub.
Anyways, hit it, Johnny! Oh, no! That's terrible! That's worse than More Life! Holy balls! He was so off course, and he didn't even know it. I'm kidding. He knew exactly what he was doing. This album is not out of character. Song to song, we have no 5s, no 4s, 2 3s, 5 2s, 4 1s, and 3 0s. It's bad. Really bad. How bad? 28.5% of the possible points bad. And I thought More Life slightly at 30 was bad. Hurts worse to think that this is the most time he's taken between any of his last 5 projects. And that end product is easily the worst of all of them. It's hard to know that, being that I haven't listened to any albums before views, but those actually have 5s and 4s. But why? What makes it fail to tick like a worthwhile piece of art? Well, maybe if it didn't share so many similarities with the last mixtape. It's interesting that Drake calls these mixtapes because the only difference between them is quality. Neither of them have drawn 5s out of me, and yet they could only draw 1 4, even if Demo tried to have a Do Not Disturb, just not as good. Mostly the issue between them is a broad lack of effort and creativity. I guess calling them mixtapes gives him an excuse to release 14 songs that may as well have died before reaching public ears, except then we'd lose Toosie Slide, which could have just been a single we can rail at the end of the year. Instead, it's an extra 13 add to terrible songs that are supposed to get me pumped for a 30-song Drake album that won't be this shitty? I don't think I'd be able to survive a year with 2 Drake albums. Be writing until my hand rots. Basically, both of these are uninteresting, sloppy, droning wastes of time, enough to be streamed by curious fools like myself. And 1.5% really isn't a difference. They're the same. But which one is better? More life. Why specifically?
Hey, Southside, where you get all that drip?
Why make these songs? Money. What are these songs about? What are these songs only good for? Other than When to Say When, every goddamn song is just about standard. Girls, spending, cred. He's not doing anything that hasn't been done 1,000,000 times better than Boring Man. So what's the point?
I got big stacks coming out to save.
There's not even an underlying theme, unless mixtape can be classified as a theme, which it's not even an excuse. Music is an efficiency game. Copy-paste that forgettable beat. Copy-paste that forgettable Drake. Often not even do the song. Throw in some nobody whose career will go nowhere because they were lucky to show up on a Drake throwaway album. How's Georgia Smith doing? No clue. These tapes are just too flat to invoke anything but apathy. I'm sure Drake fans don't care about them after half a year. Or are forced to forget about it because the real album comes out in 3 months. Or turn your mixtape into a bunch of segmented phases.
I know.
This thing is just 3 actual mixtapes. You know, like short enough to fit on a tape. These songs are a little more soulful. Almost like they are real songs. None are that bad. Personally wouldn't seek them out, but I figured we were headed towards something at least ignorable. Then the Toosie Slide part starts, and ooh boy! The middle of this album is pure shit. Trend chasing, embarrassingly phony, disingenuine, like most Drake songs. The third is just Aubrey potpourri, like stuff ranging from his light effort translating into something almost enjoyable to crap. What matters is this thing couldn't feel less cohesive, even though most songs are about the same boring nonsense and it makes it worse than anything he's done thus far. Basically, it's a mess, unlike the generational powerhouse of a hit single representing this album.
Right foot up.
I went into this album thinking of it as a 1, it escaped my song-by-song analysis as a 0, because even if it's boring, formulaic, lame, sloppy, uninteresting, tedious, repetitive, stodgy, banal, irksome, it's the beginning of the album's meltdown. It's one thing to just be a bad song, but to collapse an album with its lack of quality really tanks it in my eyes. Hell, I called Too Good the polar opposite because it was next to a 0. So hey, it's got the potential to sully a record. You don't put your best bowler third on a Baker team, why treat an album any different? That's a perfect analogy. Of course you know what Bakers are, stop lying. Toosie Slide's problem is it sounds like an average of all Drake songs, so it is so pointless. Imagine actually trying to dance to this.
Left foot up, right foot slide.
Toosie, I'm writing a song for you because I know how much you love to hear me use autotune as a slide. Toosie Slide. Wow, that's perfect. Let's leave the rest of criticism of it for next month. Instead, I'll take 20 seconds to describe the album's
Hey.
2 3s. That's something. And by something, I mean one song that's about something other than boring flaunting, and one that functions as a playable piece of music. Who'd have thunk he could pull that off? They highlight the only 2 things Drake needs to do to not be the most infuriating largest act of all time. Cut out the uninteresting bragging and try to make the songs into songs and not rushed formalities. But I'm dumb for thinking any of this. I should actually just be thinking about the money this is making Drake, not about how much time I've wasted writing about these albums. I used to be so spry.
Basically,
This album is terrible. You want me to call it a mixtape? Make it EP length. It's a fucking album. It's too rack-shamble to be enjoyable. It's too Drake to be good. Hell, the only thing he got right was the length, and it still managed to feel twice as long as More Life, which was already the ungodliest waste of time I'd experienced. I'm sure Drake will take this in stride and give it his all next time. Money's a powerful thing. Do you think Drake really cares about Billboard records? He'd buy the site if he wasn't already swimming in cash or gave a fuck, but none of it matters. It's about the celebrity of being here. It's about taking his fears of fading into irrelevance he foresaw as a young artist and testing fate now by being the opposite. Watch as Drake not trying keeps him more popular than ever. So here are my predictions. There's no way in hell we have an album from him this summer. Do you really expect the guy to force a Scorpion caliber album 1 to 3 months after he makes 13 other songs? Who's gonna work with him so soon? He just cashed in 3 future collaborations. I think albums and mixes are going to become more spread out as he keeps releasing singles with nobodies, wash-ups, and worst of all, himself. And you know what? I'll take it. If there's a way to get Drake to only make 8 one-off songs a year and stay just as popular, then we can be rid of these fucking worthless albums. More Life 2, 2 out of 10. Can we be done with this charade already? Other than not miking my terrible camera audio, those old Drake album videos hold up, so watch them. It's the channel's first video trilogy. Soon there will be another Top 100 installment, so stick around for that. Like, subscribe, comment what your perfect Sunday is, share, do everything possible into tricking the algorithm into thinking I'm as good as Sean. Okay, love you. Drive safe.